How about a walk through Goodwill and look at cameras? We're just looking through. I always check out cameras, and some days you hit the jackpot. Today's the jackpot day. Here's their books, their better books they set out, a little higher price, hoping you pay a little more. The Other Woman. American Women. Ooh. And we have a Polaroid passport camera. In just a second you'll see it. It's got 2 lenses, and it will take 2 pictures on one piece of Polaroid film that you can cut apart and put in your passport. One gets cut for your passport and one gets stored on file. Unfortunately, there's no back to this camera. I suppose if you were determined enough, you could use it for something. $13, not too bad. Here's 35mm cameras. Here's a Canon. They're film cameras, like I say. There's a 300mm lens for $10. The cameras without lenses are $10. Here's a Minolta. I've never been a fan of Minolta. I know some people love them, but I just never did. What's this? Here's a Canon. I've had this one before, this Canon Rebel film camera. It's got a motor drive in it. Here's another Minolta without a lens, $10. But this one weighs way more. This is probably older. It's got a really heavy motor drive in it. Pentax. There's another Minolta. So they're all $30. Now what's interesting is you're going to see a 400mm preset lens here in a second, right there. And I'm going to talk about that in the car and give you a little information about it and a link to where you can learn how to use one of these, because you have to learn how to use it. Going through Goodwill and Gorham, it's funny, I was sitting out in the parking lot, I was saying, wouldn't it be nice if I went in there and there were some cameras to look at? There were a bunch. So the SLRs were basically $30. If they work, that's not a bad price. If it's something you want. These are film cameras, they're not digital. I particularly like the looks of the Pentax. The Pentax one. Quite a bit heavier than the other ones. You could tell it had a motor drive and everything. And what would you do with these cameras if you were really interested in buying one? First, you'd open up everything that can open up, the batteries, areas and everything, both batteries, if they've got separate batteries for the motor drive or whatever. But you want to inspect them for corrosion, because if there's corrosions in the battery terminals, that could mean there's corrosion further into the camera and the camera's inoperable. Now, luckily with places like Goodwill now, you can return things. So if you were to get one, say I was to purchase this Pentax camera because I want the lens they had there to go with it, I could bring that home and purchase the battery. Sometimes there's specialized batteries for cameras, sometimes not. But then I could try it out and test it. And then, if the camera didn't function, all I'd be out is the price of the battery. I could bring the camera back and tell them it doesn't work. But the lens you saw me with was a preset lens. This looks like the exact same thing almost as the Spiratone lens of that. They're preset lenses, which means they have to be rerun a little differently. They have no internal coupling to the camera. So basically when you put that on, you have to measure the light by stopping down, then you open it back up while you're viewing and close it back, the diaphragm, to the correct point when you get ready to take the picture. Now, I'll have a link down below to go to. I did one on the Spiratone preset 400mm lens that's become quite popular. People thank me for putting it up because it explains it. But so there, the camera was 30, the lens was 25, the 400mm lens, and so that could give you quite a bit of versatility as far as using this 400mm lens, and you still have the normal lens for whatever. And two, what you find, unless you go into really specialized lenses, that lenses can be bought for next to nothing. Usually when I shop for cameras and things, I yard sale. So to me, paying $30 for a camera like that is actually high, not low. But but anyway, if you wanted to get into film, these two things, and you like to take telephoto photographs, you're going to work with film. You got a really good setup here for that amount of money. And then you could see they had some, they had some not digital, but they had the film Rebels, the Canon Rebels. There were some Minox cameras. And two, I just wanted to point out about the Polaroid camera. You saw that Polaroid camera with two lenses. Well, it's a passport camera. And what would happen, well, you could see when I turned it around, there was no back on it, okay? There's a back that fits on it that had a pack of the Polaroid film that you would snap the picture, and then you take out the Polaroid picture, and you'd cut it up and put it on a passport. And it has two lenses, because you generally have to submit two photos, one that they're going to put on your passport and one that they keep. And this is like a fixed focus lens. So as long as you let's just say it says to have a person 9 feet away. I don't think it would be that far, but say it was 9 feet away. As long as you have that person at 9 feet, you have that camera, you take a picture, it's always going to be in focus, and the head size is going to be correct. Now, for passports, they're very picky about how big the head or how small the head is in the actual passport photo. They'll even give you a template that will show you how big or small the face has to be to make it an acceptable photograph. Now it's all done digitally, but in the old days, it had to be done with Polaroid. I mean, you could do it with film, I guess, but it took so much more time. But you would see just about any camera shop and some other places would have this camera set up. So they have this area in the corner of the store where they have some small amount of lighting, and they have a backdrop, and they have the camera set up. You stand on the X, click, and all of a sudden you've got the passport photos. And I think back at the time, they would go for like $15. And at that time, I would think that the materials, I'm not sure, remembering back if this is quite right, but I would say back then it would cost about 50 cents to shoot each picture. So the person would, of course, have the equipment, the expense of the purchasing the camera, which I'm sure that if that Polaroid camera was complete back when it was sold, I'm sure it probably sold for over $600. And so you have that expense, but basically you'd be able to produce high quality passport photos, while the person waits in just a couple minutes, and make, like I say, you charge $15, and then you have only 50 cents in actual expendable materials, and then the camera that you're amortizing. It's funny now with people that are brought up in the digital age, they probably don't know how extremely versatile and important Polaroid film was. It was used in, like I say, passport things. It even sometimes would be used by police departments to document certain things where they had to get, had to have something instantly. All your realtors would have a Polaroid camera so they could take a picture of their property so that could get put in the paper. But it was a massive product line before digital came in, and of course, it died with that. But also the products kept getting more expensive, of course, because a lot of chemicals and a lot of expertise go into manufacturing that film. So eventually you're getting more up to where it was $1 a shot or more, and Polaroid just disappeared. Now the Polaroid camera company, went bankrupt. But what's happened recently in the last, I don't know if it's been the last 2 or 3 years, there was a company that was trying to manufacture Polaroid type film, and they were kind of fairly successful at it, but they were selling film that didn't quite work right. It sounds silly, but people had a certain flair for the idea of taking these pictures with Polaroid cameras when the colors would come out wrong, or the actual surface of the photograph wasn't that nice, and it became kind of an artsy thing. So they would sell this film that's kind of like, to me, I would call it defective, but they called it artistic, okay? And people would buy it, but eventually the major stockholder of that company had amassed enough money to actually go buy what was left of the Polaroid company, to acquire their patents and everything and all this stuff. And now they actually have started manufacturing some of the Polaroid film. They don't have the pack film that would go into that camera we saw, but some of the 600 series cameras, they came out with film, and they also came out with some new cameras. And now this has run on way too long, but the last thing I'm going to say is they made the cameras and they made the film cheaper by not including a battery in each package of film. In their original 600 film, this was the film the picture pops out. There was a battery in each packet of film, so you never had to worry about batteries in the camera. You slap that thing in, you got new batteries that are certainly going to last for the number of shots that are in that pack. So by doing away with that battery and putting the battery back as being replaceable in the camera, they were able to make this film, when I say cheaper, I mean cheaper than it would have been with the battery, but it's still quite expensive now to use the Polaroid film. But like I say, I'll try to put a link below to that company, and you can see some of the cameras and products they have. One of the interesting things they have is I think they call it like a photo lab, but it's basically this camera that's set up so that you put your cell phone on top of it with the picture you want, you press a button, and boom, out pops actual copy of that photograph. And so if you wanted to instantly print something from your phone, that's the way to do it. So there we go. Way too much talk about Polaroid and some talk about preset lenses. Bye.